So we're diving into a topic that hits close to home for many caring for a loved one after a traumatic brain injury. You've shared professionalhelp.txt, and it sounds like you're searching for support and guidance. And that's exactly what we're here to offer. Think of this deep dive as your personal roadmap through the often overwhelming world of TBI caregiving.
And you're definitely not alone in feeling overwhelmed. It's incredibly common and honestly seeking help.
Yeah.
That's not a sign of weakness. It takes strength to recognize that. It means you understand the importance of taking care of yourself too, not just your loved one.
It's true. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. But did you know there's actually a lot of research to back that up? Studies are showing that if caregivers don't prioritize their own well-being, it can lead to some serious long-term health issues down the road.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about chronic stress, sleep deprivation, not to mention the emotional toll it takes. All of that can really impact your physical and mental health in the long run.
Which is exactly why this document jumps right into those warning signs, those red flags, that maybe it's time to reach out for some extra help. It's almost like a little checklist to see if anything resonates with you. So feeling constantly overwhelmed, anxious, maybe even a little down.
Or how about struggling to manage certain behaviors? Finding it difficult to juggle caregiving with everything else you've got going on, or maybe your own health has kind of taken a back seat. These are all incredibly common experiences for those on this TBI journey, and recognizing them, that's always the first step.
It's true. And I think sometimes just hearing about someone else's experience, a real life example, can help you realize, hey, I'm not the only one going through this.
Definitely. I remember working with this one caregiver. She was so incredibly dedicated to her husband after his TBI,
Mm.
but she was so focused on his needs, she completely isolated herself, stopped seeing friends, stopped doing the things she loved. And eventually, her own health really started to decline. It was tough to see, but it really highlighted how important it is to take care of yourself. Putting that oxygen mask on yourself first isn't selfish. It's crucial for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Because ultimately, it's about being able to provide that sustainable care over the long haul. And part of that is recognizing when you need that extra support.
And it's not just about recognizing it, right? It's about knowing what to do, where to turn when you need that help. That's where this document, professionalhelp.txt, comes in. It's like, okay, we get it. Caregiving is hard. Here's some places you can start.
Exactly. It's like having that lifeline. But instead of just throwing you a single rope, it's like, here's a whole toolkit. Use what works for you.
I like that, the toolkit analogy.
Yeah.
And you don't need every tool for every situation, right? Sometimes just knowing what's in that toolkit is a relief in itself.
Totally. So let's open up that toolkit, shall we? What's the first thing we see?
Well, this document breaks things down into categories, which I think is super helpful. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. First up, we've got mental health.
Makes sense. I mean, we're talking about taking care of yourself emotionally during what's probably one of the most stressful times in your life.
Absolutely. And within that category, you've got options. Individual therapy, for example. Having that dedicated time with a therapist who truly understands TBI caregiving can be a game changer. Learning coping mechanisms, processing everything in a healthy way.
It's like having that safe space, that outlet to just unpack all of it without feeling judged.
Exactly. Then you've got support groups. Oh, the power of connecting with people who get it, people who've walked in your shoes. It's incredible.
I had a friend who was caring for her aging mother, and she told me joining a support group was the best decision she ever made.
Really?
It wasn't even about getting advice necessarily. It was just knowing she wasn't alone. That in itself was therapeutic.
It's huge. And it's not just about sharing the tough stuff either. It's about sharing strategies, resources, even laughing together, because you need those moments of joy too.
For sure. Okay, so we've got mental health. What's next in our toolkit?
Let's talk about respite care.
Ah, yes. Respite care. I think a lot of caregivers almost feel guilty even thinking about this one, like they should be able to do it all.
It's so common. But the truth is, everyone needs a break. And respite care isn't about abandoning your loved one. It's about making sure you're the best version of yourself when you're with them. Remember that empty cup?
Refill, refill, refill.
Exactly. So what does respite care look like in action? Well, it's about having that structured support. It could be anything from having a trained professional come to your home for a few hours, giving you a chance to, run errands, take a nap.
Oh, a nap. What's that?
Right. Or maybe your loved one attends an adult daycare program, specifically designed for people with TBIs. Structured activities, socialization, even therapy sometimes.
That sounds incredibly beneficial on so many levels. The caregiver gets a break, and the person with the TBI gets to engage in new ways. It's a win-win.
Right. And then, depending on the situation, there's short-term residential care.
This is where your loved one would stay at a facility for a bit.
Exactly. Maybe a week, maybe two. Gives you a chance to address other responsibilities, recharge your batteries, hit the reset button.
For both of you, it's like pushing pause, taking a breath, and coming back refreshed. But I imagine for a lot of people, even taking that first step to seek any of these options out can feel really daunting. It can feel like a whole other mountain to climb, right? Like, okay, I'm finally admitting I need help, but where do I even start?
You're preaching to the choir. It's a common feeling, for sure. But that's where professionalhelp.txt really shines, I think. It gives you these concrete starting points,
Yeah.
places to turn to. And the truth is, a lot of these resources are far more accessible than people realize. Take your local area agency on aging, for example.
See, now that's one I've heard of, but honestly, not totally sure what they do.
Don't worry, you're not alone. It's, they're known for senior services, which makes sense, but they actually have a ton of information support for caregivers of all ages. Think of them as your local experts. They often have these directories, right? Caregiver support programs, respite care, you name it.
So they're like that first phone call. Instead of you having to dig through a million websites.
Precisely. And never underestimate just talking to someone who gets it. Reach out to your loved one's medical team, the doctors, nurses, therapists. They can be absolute gold mines of information.
Oh, for sure. Plus, they already know your loved one's case, right? So they're uniquely positioned to offer advice.
Exactly. And then, of course, there are the national and state brain injury associations, their websites, treasure troves, educational materials, support group listings, and those crucial helplines.
Don't forget the helpline. Sometimes you just need to talk it out, Even if it's just for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
To someone who understands, get some reassurance.
100%. And I think that's the most important thing to take away from all of this. You are not alone in this. Seeking help, taking care of your own well-being, that's not selfish. It's essential, not just for you, but for your loved one, too.
It all comes back to that empty cup, doesn't it? You can't keep giving if you don't take care of yourself. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. What's one small act of self-care you can commit to this week? Maybe it's scheduling that doctor's appointment you've been putting off, joining a support group, or just taking 15 minutes to breathe. Small steps lead to big changes, and you deserve all the support in the world. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and until next time, take care.